Peter Allen, figure transformation, and what I want to start off with is kind of after the hips, what starts to happen. So again, if you think about it, if my hips and my glutes start to get too tight, now I can't move and twist and rotate the way that I should. All too often I would encounter clients worried about twisting because that's where they would find pain. And it took me a while to understand. I mean, really recently is when I really started to understand this. If my tailbone is too tight, now I can't twist. Now I'm putting more torque on my lumbar and then putting more torque on my thoracic. And then because my arms aren't in the right position, it starts to kind of alter everything. So, what we kind of want to start to do after we loosen the tissue kind of in our hips and our glutes, all around this kind of wheel belt area. And again, it takes a while. You kind of want to keep working on loosening this tissue and fascia. I then need to start kind of working on my low back, rectus spinae, multifidus. Huge one though is the QL. So my QL on my left side got really tight. A lot of it I think is again because a lot of rotational pattern movements. I'm turning this way all too often. I tend not to turn as much to my right as I do my left, just because I'm right-handed and I'm going to twist and turn into the side. So now I'm putting a lot of stress on that QL constantly. And we all kind of do it. Maybe if I'm left-handed, now I'm turning this way. But unfortunately, left-handed also live in a right-handed world, so they too kind of end up probably with similar issues as a right-handed person. So what I want to start to do is kind of loosen the multifidus, the QL. Again, what I want to try and do is kind of stretch that tissue. Now, everybody's a little bit different here, but a lot of people are the same. I'm noticing a ton of our population with this kind of hyper arch because we're trying to almost have bigger butts and kind of get the hips out there, if you will, which again now is altering how I move through the rest of my body. So what I want to kind of do is kind of draw in my core. That's also what happens too, is we're not pulling in. Women tend to do this much better than men. Men tend to kind of push out more too often, myself included. And this is why I kind of ended up with a belly that's kind of pushing, and this is also how we end up more rounder in appearance, right? If my glutes are clenching, pushing forward to hold and stable my balance, so now I'm going to end up rounder, find my balance, okay? Now if this is moving better, now I can kind of slightly lean forward, which is really what we want to do to help promote better posture and movement. Now I'm going to have to start using my core more because I'm leaning. And I'm also going to start to stretch the tissue in the back. All too often I see people kind of sitting back, okay? Locking the knees, maybe popping, okay? And this is what leads to so many bad issues. I've known it for years, I just didn't realize how much it did. I used to pop to my right and sit there. Now some people will do it both, but you can see what's happening. So I'm going to develop scar tissue in these areas where we're kind of popping and sitting because the tissue is just getting really tight and holding into those positions. What we're going to do is, again, as known, like percussion therapy, in my opinion, is going to be the new way and the only way to kind of really start promoting how we can facilitate better movement, because we need to break up this tissue and become more flexible. And how do we become more flexible is percussion therapy. So what I'm going to do is going to show you this side a little bit. So I'm going to lean forward a little bit. I'm just going to kind of put it in that QL area. Again, I might even kind of get into that hip. Now I did this too with my glute, okay? So again, nothing wrong with, again, kind of working two and two together here. Now the hard part is again, kind of doing this yourself. I have noticed with the kind of newer gun, the handle is a little bit better to get to these areas. I'm actually going to go to this side, it's a little bit easier. The weight distribution in the handle is a little bit better. It's still not the easiest thing to do by yourself. Easier if you get somebody helping you. But again, what I want to do is I want to try and stretch that area. I'm noticing on myself and everybody else too, where most people are really, again, you think of how little that lumbar kind of moves, it just starts to get really restricted. And then the other thing that helps the lower lumbar move is your hips. And again, if our hips are too tight and I kind of develop all this scar tissue in and around here, it's going to be really hard for my lumbar to move properly. And it's going to put more pressure on my rectus spinae, multifidus, QL. All too often, again, we're kind of just blaming these singular muscles, not realizing it's it takes a village, if you will, for the body to move, and we have all these kind of redundancy patterns. Another big one is kind of the lat. So if I kind of round a little bit and start to get in here, I noticed on myself, my lat just it becomes so tight. It wasn't working my big movement patterns anymore, kind of coming up. So again, I could reach really high. And again, I want to kind of promote that tissue to start moving. Think of your lats that start here, they come all the way up, they attach up underneath to the humerus. We're thinking of them only working in certain areas, but they're always stabilizing. So especially underneath the shoulder blade, it's kind of really where I'm noticing everybody kind of getting jammed up. The whole lat in particular, I guess you could say. Just again, if we're not doing big movement patterns, working, and kind of on that note, if I wanted to try and promote some better movement, I might do the TRX. I do this in a doorway too. So I kind of just lean back and I kind of stretch. Now, if I didn't have the TRX, I would be holding onto the doorway and kind of trying to come back up, pull myself a little bit. As soon as I got the TRX, I'm going to come up and come into a big motion pattern, coming back down, big motion pattern. So again, now I'm hitting that whole back chain. I also had made a video of this before, but again, if I wanted to stretch it, I might kind of grab one side, do my left, and I'm going to reach and stretch in here. And again, this would be a great way to start getting in here, breaking this tissue up. Because I want to stretch the tissue as far as I can, and then I want to start to kind of use the percussion therapy. That's how we're really going to kind of break this stuff up. Get it to as far of a stretch point as we can, and then start working. Okay? I'm realizing, again, I was making some mistakes before of trying to do it just in a neutral position. But the more I can get into these long positions, right here on this side for you guys. All right. Stretch a little bit. Get up under here. I can already feel my arms starting to move a little bit more. A lot of blame, and I used to blame a lot of this stuff on the chest. But the chest is reflective upon the lat is reflective upon the chest. Again, all these things, when we're trying to loosen, we got to do an opposite. And then again, we even have the tricep. Okay, that's going to play a role in this because it connects to the scapula. A lot of times we're just not following the muscles all the way. All too often we're focused on maybe the pain here, not realizing, well, the pain may be there, but why is it there? It's because maybe the ulnar can't rotate properly, or again, the tricep becomes too tight, and then, scar tissue is developing and encapsulates it. This is kind of what takes away your pain, if you will, or maybe we unintentionally altered the movement pattern a little bit, and we just don't realize it. And that's kind of, unfortunately, too, like when we're kind of resting, if you will, our muscles are still tight, okay, depending on the position we're sitting in. And if my tissue, is tightening, it's going to restrict my movement. So until I can start moving it again, now we don't want to move it when we're kind of eliciting pain, but we want to get right to that tip, okay, or find a movement pattern that facilitates better movement and start working it that way. The other part to this would be our core. Now I know a lot of people will take some time before they kind of get into this part of it, but just to kind of recap on the other side of it, it's going to be our hips, okay? It's going to be, all too often, again, my rectus abdominis on myself included, it just gets too tight. This is why we kind of end up with our pelvic tilt, and we're not realizing it, because what's pulling that? My rectus abdominis, my external obliques. So, our core, for it to be weak, it's really hard. It's more that the core just gets stuck in a position, if you will. Myself included, I've been kind of breaking this up or trying to work on this for a while, but I realized too, my core is reflective upon where my extremities are and how well they can move too. So if I'm too tight through here, well, my rectus abdominis and my obliques can't move properly. And it's really hard to kind of get a big stretch of the core. All too often what we're doing is tightening it. So like if I do a leg raise, you know, I'm just tightening the core. Now my hip flexors have to do the movement. Okay, my core doesn't attach to my legs. My core attaches here, okay, to the pelvic area. Now my legs are doing the movement. So, you know, this is why your hip flexors and all these other muscles, when we're doing leg raises and stuff, are starting to come in too much, is because if my core isn't strong enough to keep that back down, now I gotta start to kind of arch, start to pull. So, you know, a lot of times when we're working and we're tight, we're not realizing maybe we're causing more harm than good sometimes. I started to realize it. That's kind of really how I started to figure this out, was because my right hip was just not getting better. No matter how much I exercised, and I just knew it was getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and I felt like there was some way to do this to help myself and to learn how to help others better. And you know, at this kind of day and age, with all this technology and stuff, there's got to be better ways, and there is. It's just hard to understand with percussion therapy what's really happening, because you know, a lot of people are so used to touch, and then we're so focused on the individual muscle doing X, Y, or Z, not understanding, well, why is X, Y, or Z doing the work? It's because A, B, and C are not allowing these guys to fire properly. And that's what we got to start to kind of fix. And if you start this at a younger age, I can't see why this couldn't be huge in terms of fixing so many issues, or not having issues start to begin with. You know, I'm 42 and I'm breaking up, you know, 30, 40 plus years of scar tissue here. And I'm able to do it, you know, at my age. Imagine if somebody was doing this in their 20s with training. It's, you know, and this is again probably what professional athletes are getting in terms of their, you know, and again, they're 1%ers that are moving better than anybody, and they probably know better than anybody, and we're not like that 1%, you know. Even as much as I move, I'm not even close to maybe the top 10%. But, you know, we all think that we're, you know, moving like that, and we should be able to recover in those same ways, and we're just not understanding what's happening to the body. But yeah, we want to start to facilitate stretching here, so I might kind of get into these big stretches, okay? And again, I want getting movement through here, okay? That's what I'm really looking for, is to get more space in between my humerus and my shoulder blade. All too often we're ending up kind of pinned in like this, and this is why the collarbone starts shifting. I'll do another video on that, but kind of trying to go in order here. So hips, trunk, okay, we can get the upper body, and I'll discuss that in a minute, and how we can do that. If you are getting enough tissue movement here, then yeah, you can start to kind of break the tissue up on the core and the hips. So again, I've kind of got to this point myself that I can start stretching the fascia here. Again, my hips got pulled up and in. You know, I can feel how tight my obliques are on the sides. And it's just so hard to hit all the movement patterns that we need to when we're exercising. And again, if we're going into that with tightness to begin with, it's hard to improve. And I know, you know, myself included, and I'm sure a lot of people, we just don't stretch enough. We put more emphasis on the moving than the stretching. But we can start to facilitate better stretching with percussion, whether you're seeking help or whether you're kind of following along in my videos or whatnot. You know, I'm sure I don't know too many other people out there that are kind of doing this right now. I don't know why, and I should have figured this out sooner for everybody. I'm not one to make videos or do a lot of this stuff, but I feel like some of this stuff needs to get out there and be known that what we can do and what I've been doing and working on for years. So the next one's going to be on the upper body. You know, in some of these videos I've done before, but I'm trying to kind of segment it together for everyone. I hope you found this helpful, and stay tuned for the next one.